What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. And I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your New Orleans Saints expert, credential member of the media, CrescentCitySports.com, USA Today's Saints Wire, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. And thank you very much for joining us for a POSTCAST live episode here on the Locked On Saints podcast, as we do following every single game, win or lose, here throughout the NFL season. Mr. Jerry, I see you. Hunter, I see you. Who else do I got in here? King Troll, I see you. Kim Young, I see you. I thank you very much for being here. Don't forget to drop that your team every day in the chat, and we can celebrate here because it's a victory. Well, it's going to be a victory Monday in the next full episode, but it's a victory Sunday right now because the New Orleans Saints get a big win here in the Caesars Superdome, which you can see over here right behind me. And of course, shutting out the Las Vegas Raiders 24-0. And one of the things that I want to highlight, which we're going to get to what this means for the team moving forward, what this means in terms of the division, where the division stands, all of that. We're going to get to all that here in just a moment. But what I want to start off with here is just how important this win is, not only for the short-term success of the New Orleans Saints, but potentially if this proves to be the new norm, right? If the Saints can live up to their potential, how important this is moving forward for them, not only short-term, but also long-term. Think about the players that made the big plays in today's game. What's up, Aaron? Thank you so much for being here. Alvin Kamara, 27 years old. Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo, both 23 years old. They held Davante Adams to 3 receiving yards on just 1 reception despite 5 targets in this game. He also had a run for -1 yard. So the end of the day stat line for Davante Adams is 5 targets, 1 carry, 1 catch, 2 yards. Josh Jacobs, just 47 yards, 49 yards in this game. The Las Vegas Raiders run game, 2.3 yards per carry. Who helped there? Marcus Davenport. Payton Turner, also 23 years old. Marcus Davenport, 26 years old. Pete Werner helped in that category, as well as every category when it comes to this New Orleans Saints defense, because that's just who Pete Werner is, the Swiss Army knife of the defense. 23 years old. This New Orleans Saints defense pitched a shutout today against a team that was averaging more than 28 points per game coming into the contest. This was an incredible victory for the New Orleans Saints in exactly what they needed. You also look at the other players over on the offensive side that made the big impacts. You look at, of course, Alvin Kamara, like I said, 27 years old. He had over 140, 150 all-purpose yards again in this game, was averaging, by the time you got into the third quarter, 7.4 yards per play, per touch in this one. And then you look at Chris Olave, who didn't have a 100-yard receiving game, which is kind of feeling like it's becoming the norm for the young kid, but instead had 4 catches, and 3 of those four of them, all 4 of his catches went for first down conversions, right? They converted a first down with those, and 3 of those first downs were on third down. He also drew an offensive pass interference penalty on third down as well, a 3rd and 9. So he continued to keep drives alive while the Saints converted 7 of their 12 third downs. This is exactly the type of game that the New Orleans Saints not only needed right now, but will need moving forward. They were looking for the game where they could finally click and sort of have this complete game, this 3-phase game, this 60-minute game, and they finally got it in what is a huge win for the Saints. 24-0, their first shutout since they shut out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year, 9-0, and I believe their first shutout at home since well before that. So this was absolutely huge for the New Orleans Saints. And what does it mean for them moving forward? Well, let's look very short term first. Their very next game is against the Baltimore Ravens, an offense that has not looked like the Baltimore Ravens that we're accustomed to seeing thus far, but we've seen teams find their get right up against the New Orleans Saints throughout this season. Today, Sunday, their win against the Raiders, gives you some hope, some faith that won't be the case for the Ravens next week. Now, it's going to be a big challenge. It's going to be a very different challenge with the Monday night game, primetime. Lamar Jackson, who is one of, if not the best mobile quarterback in the NFL right now. It's going to be hard to contain him. It's going to be hard to contain the yards after catch monsters that are Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay and these other wide receivers that they have in that building. But this gives you right now the formula that hopefully you can replicate enough moving forward to lead to more wins this season. So New Orleans Saints advance to 3-5. Where does that put them in their standing when it comes to the division? We're going to get to that in just a moment. And I'm going to also real quick agree with Ian Butler. Alontae Taylor is 100% the real deal. He absolutely is. He has been absolutely fantastic so far to start his career. But what does that all mean for the New Orleans Saints as they move forward? We're going to break that down as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Before we do get to that, though, I do want to make sure that you are also aware of our friends and our sponsor over at BetterHelp. BetterHelp is one of my favorite services that I've ever used, and I utilize it pretty often. I am somebody that does believe in the value of therapy. I myself utilize therapy. BetterHelp has been super accessible, super affordable, and super just convenient for me because it's all online. So it's everything that I need at the tip of my fingertips. I mean, like right at my fingertips. It allows me to make sure that I can do a phone call. I could do a video call if I don't feel like talking or I don't feel like being seen on camera. I can also do a chat. I can reach out and schedule things however I like, and I can also book kind of like emergency, high priority, like I need somebody right now kind of appointments, things like that. So really, really cool stuff. And they go so far out of their way to make sure that you get the therapist that is a match for you by simply answering a few questions at the beginning in a little questionnaire to where they make sure that they get you all lined up with a person that makes sense for you. So enough about me blabbering all about it. Let me make sure that you know how to take advantage of all of this. So whether or not you've been in therapy personally or you're looking to get into therapy, that BetterHelp is going to be the place to go. So if you want to check it out, just get unstuck when it comes to BetterHelp, and you can learn more and get 10% off of your first month over at betterhelp.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And before we continue on, I also want to tell you about our friends over at Blue Nile. If you have, let's say, a big time day that you're wanting to commemorate, that you're just wanting to like make that moment sparkle, you want to make that moment shine, you want to propose, you're looking for the perfect engagement ring, whatever it is that you're looking for, Blue Nile has exactly what it is that you need. And they also have 24/7 jewelry experts on hand, 24/7, to make sure that you're able to get the help that you need and get the right, memorable gift that matches your budget. So you can shop stress-free over at Blue Nile's 100 and get Blue Nile's 100% satisfaction guarantee by heading over to BlueNile.com today. So you can make your moment sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, so you can get $50 off of your purchase of up of $500 or more. That's BLUENILE.com. Promo code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. All right. So now, the New Orleans Saints get this big shutout victory against the Las Vegas Raiders. It's awesome. It's great. But what does it actually mean for the New Orleans Saints moving forward? Well, thanks to some wild play over in Atlanta between the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons end up getting a win. DJ Moore scores on what looks like it's going to be the go-ahead touchdown on a big 60-plus yard Hail Mary from P.J. Walker. And he takes his helmet off in excitement, and the NFL, being the NFL, penalizes him for taking his helmet off on the field, and they go to kick a field goal or extra point to win the game, and they miss, and then it goes to overtime. Atlanta throws an interception. Carolina goes to kick the game-winning field goal, 32 yards. They miss it. Younghoe Koo goes back, 41 yards. He kicks it in. Therefore, the Atlanta Falcons have won. So what does that mean for the NFC South and the New Orleans Saints? It means the New Orleans Saints are going to sit at third in the NFC South for right now. They're technically tied at second, but because Tampa owns the tiebreaker, you might as well just consider them third. The Atlanta Falcons will take sole possession of first place at 4-4, and then the Carolina Panthers drop to last place at 2-6. This is not bad news for the New Orleans Saints. Yes, you hate seeing Atlanta up at the top of the division. However, the New Orleans Saints own the tiebreaker, head-to-head tiebreaker against the Atlanta Falcons right now, and they will basically up until the two teams meet again in Week 15. So that means the New Orleans Saints have a little bit of leverage over that top team. Now, the Saints are going to be hosting the Baltimore Ravens here in New Orleans, and they're going to travel to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who got decimated by the Philadelphia Eagles today. Then they'll have to come back and host the Los Angeles Rams. So three tough teams, toughish teams in the upcoming for the New Orleans Saints. But if they can rattle off a couple of wins in a row, that might be the difference here in the division, because there's no consistency in the division. The NFC South right now is in shambles. It is up and down, roller coaster, all of that. So this is the opportunity now for the New Orleans Saints to take the potential that they showed you right there on that field and replicate it, and continue to move forward and climb the standings within the NFC South. If Tampa's going to continue to if I'm going to borrow a phrase from my good friend Luke Braun from over at Locked On Vikings and Locked On NFL podcast, get their poop in a group, then the New Orleans Saints need to be able to start to capitalize on these moments. Atlanta's going to fall apart. There's nothing to worry about there. Carolina is in a situation to where they're going to be so up and down moving forward, and just losing a loss like that, that's just heartbreaking, gut-wrenching for that team. So you can look back and say, hey, if the New Orleans Saints had more than 2 wins going into this game, where they're now 3-5, they would be in a much better place, and they would technically be just one more win. They would be number 1 in the division right now because they hold that tiebreaker against the Atlanta Falcons. But regardless, they've now won 3 games, and for right now, that's all that it takes to be tied for second place. So for the Saints, their focus needs to be continuing to build on this momentum. And how can they do that? What does this mean for them moving forward as a team? The big thing, and my kind of closing point here, is that the Saints found their formula for winning games. And y'all, it's not a secret formula. It's not a secret sauce of any kind. It's not a secret recipe of any kind. It's just good football. That's what the New Orleans Saints played today. Tackling was good. It was you had a couple of missed tackles. You're going to have some missed tackles every game. Tackling was good. You got the takeaway, right? The ever elusive takeaway. The first one that they've gotten in the United States so far this year. First interception they've gotten in the United States so far this year. Tyrann Mathieu, second interception. The Saints' second interception. So you get that. You also force a turnover on downs. You stop a fake punt. You're getting sacks on third down. The pass rush was there for this team. Payton Turner, 2 sacks. Cam Jordan, a sack. David Onyemata, a sack. This was the game that you've been waiting for from this team in terms of all 3 phases clicking. Then you had the run game percolating over on the offensive side. Rashid Shaheed touched the ball 3 times. Chris Olave's converting first downs. Taysom Hill is running up and down on players and on this defense. This is exactly what it is. Oh, and great point here by I don't want to say your name wrong, but I'm going to say Didier. I don't know, though. But if not, I hope I made it sound fancy enough to be worth it. 0 turnovers as well. They won the turnover differentiation, or the turnover differential in this one. Yes, they had a turnover on downs at one point, but that doesn't really matter. This team did best game from Payton Turner, Marcus Davenport, you get all that. So the best team win for this team, the best game that this team has put together all season. So this serves as the jumping off point for not even needing to be better moving forward. If you can replicate this, if you can just play good football, you're not going to get a shutout every week, right? That's not going to happen. Shout out to Pete Werner for saving the shutout, though, and playing with some pride, big-time pride. The Saints defense playing with some pride. Did I get it? Oh, dope. I got his name right. That was dope. I thought I made it sound like way too fancy. That's awesome. That's a dope name. Anyway, the Saints now have their blueprint, and it's not anything spectacular. It's just good football. That's what the New Orleans Saints played today. That's what they'll need to play again on Monday, actually, up against the Baltimore Ravens. That's what they'll need moving forward. And, by the way, hopefully, within the next couple of weeks, I wouldn't expect it on Monday or against the Ravens, but within the next couple of weeks, you're talking about potentially adding back Michael Thomas, adding back Jarvis Landry. Michael Thomas was on the sideline today, by the way, cutting up. He is so excited. You could tell he wants to be back out on the football field. Getting Marshawn Lattimore back. Those pieces added to what we saw today make this team an actual threat. I'm not going to say a Super Bowl contender. I'm not even going to say a playoff contender, but it makes them a threat. And that's an identity that this New Orleans Saints team needs to embrace. They are a threat of a football team, and they are one that has everything that they need right in the palm of their hands in order to win games. You want to hear more about how they can get it done? Make sure you come back for the more in-depth Monday episode, taking a look at this New Orleans Saints shutout. Some of the things that the Saints were able to achieve were near historic. Andy Dalton's performance and what it means for Dennis Allen's highly criticized decision to start Andy Dalton moving forward, and what's left for the New Orleans Saints to add, and where can they actually perform better than how they performed out on the field. And some of it simply comes with health. We're going to break all that down as we continue on. I appreciate y'all so much for joining us for a live episode. Got 213 people in the chat. Thank you so much for coming through for our postcast episode of Locked On Saints. Don't forget, please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe if this is your first time you're catching the show. We do this all the time, do this every week, and of course 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, oftentimes twice on Thursday, getting you everything you need around your New Orleans Saints. So if you're excited about this win, make sure you're coming back because there's a lot of excitement to continue to build upon. Don't forget to also go and check out Jake Madison over at Locked On Pelicans. They won today too. Big day for New Orleans and sports. You can always check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast every Monday through Friday to learn about everything else that went on around the NFL, the NBA, MLB, everything. So I appreciate you so much, as always, for making us a part of your day, a part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. And as always, if you see me, say hi. Thank you so much for being here with us. And don't forget, if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how your mom and them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.